me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
Because as park and recreation professionals, we feel like we have all the answers, but we don't see everything from every angle. Stakeholders are very key, and then creating a plan for keeping those stakeholders engaged throughout the entire process, so we're not having to do a bunch of change orders of different things that came through the process. I think every project's going to have its challenges and navigations, and you're always going to have something that pops up that you didn't think of, and that's just part of project management.
Welcome to the Facilities Maintenance Show. Today we're joined by Daniel Shafer from the city of Burleson. Daniel is here to share exciting news and updates, particularly focusing on his recent Project Management Professional certification. This certification is globally recognized and applicable across all industries, including parks and recreation. Daniel will discuss how this knowledge will enhance the management of projects within their Parks and Recreation department, from initiating and planning to executing and closing projects, ensuring their parks remain clean, safe, and beautiful for the community. Stay tuned to learn how strategic project management is elevating public spaces.
All right. We are live with an episode of the Facilities Maintenance Show. I'm Craig LeBlanc, your host, the doorman with the Daily Parks and Rec Show, and I have a regular guest, special guest, who's got some exciting news and updates for us, Daniel Shafer from what part of your city of Burleson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but we're going to play our little promos for the show that our videographers have made for us to kind of explain to new people listening to the show what we're all about, and then we'll come right back with Daniel.
Welcome to DPRS Media Co., the first media company built for the people behind the Parks and Rec community. We don't just cover on Parks and Rec, we elevate it, we amplify it, we honor it. At the heart of everything we do is one mission: to serve the public servants, the professionals who design, maintain, and lead the parks that shape our communities. Under the Daily Parks and Rec Show, we produce 6 powerful platforms. Leadership in Parks and Rec, a spotlight on directors, superintendents, and visionaries shaping the future of public spaces. Facility maintenance, where the boots hit the ground, a deep dive into the systems, crews, and craftsmanship that keep our parks clean, safe, and beautiful. Young Professionals Network, shining a light on the next generation of Parks and Rec. Students, interns, and mentors sharing how we build a legacy together. Youth Sports Mastery, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. This series is for coaches, parents, and rec leaders working to make youth sports fun, fair, and meaningful again. The Rec Room, hosted by the passionate leaders of Henry County Parks and Rec. This show brings frontline energy and real-life stories from the field. And the weekly Parks and Rec Post, our official newsletter delivering stories, insights, and community wins every week. We are DPRS Media Co., LLC, a media company with a mission to uplift the professionals who serve every community, every park, every day.
All right, and I'm going to keep playing my 200th episode celebration for a little bit longer because it's such a great video, and we're actually making another one similar to it that kind of encompasses what it stated. But anyway, shout out to everybody that's been on the show, guys like Daniel that have come help us just create content, and we just wanted to thank everybody. Here we go.
From a simple mic in a rec center to a full-scale media company for the people who power our parks. 200 real stories, 5 original shows, and more to come, with one powerful mission: to lift up the voices of Parks and Rec professionals across the country. From maintenance crews and young interns and youths who love sports, to directors and public servants making a difference. We've built a platform that honors the unsung heroes behind every clean trail, every weekend tournament, every safe, welcoming park. This milestone isn't just about the content, it's about the people, the passion, the purpose. To every guest, listener, and supporter, thank you. The next chapter starts today. This is DPRS Media Co. Media for public service.
All right. So thank you to everybody that got us to 200. We're well on our way to 300. This is our 210th episode. So 90 to go.
On the way there.
Almost there. Hopefully we get there by the end of the year. So Daniel, tell us about, he is now officially certified and qualified to either mess up or do a project management in an official capacity. You just finished what was the name of the test?
It's a project management professional certification. So it was, let's see, tomorrow would be 2 weeks ago that I passed. So
have you found that your projects are running much more smoothly now that you've got this test?
Well, for better or for worse, I'm not leading any projects currently. So we got some coming up. So it gives me some time to digest the information, kind of look at processes moving forward. So it's kind of a good window of breathing time, I guess, if you want to say.
And so for all of you managing projects out there for your Parks and Rec department, this is like a big time official, nationally or globally recognized test, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's good for all industries, not just Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it was first developed with software companies. They were the go-to for it. So the test itself has a lot of software interpretations to a lot of it. So the best advice that I got when I was going through it is to spring it into what field you're in. So if you're reading a concept or a policy or whatever best practice of try to tie it into your profession. So spin it around a little bit, because a lot of it is due to software. That's the creators of it were more software development heavy.
Yeah. And I think Daniel's offering the answers online for $9.99. You can get all the correct answers.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that. I can't remember what any of those questions were. It's such a blur. But
now it was.
I have to say my family and stuff gave me some patience. Of my household, I got 2 little ones under 4, and so I would go to Starbucks for couple hours early in the morning, Saturdays and Sundays, and study, and then find other times to be able to study. So they had to deal with some patience for the last couple months. So they're happy that I'm not having to do that study time and get to spend a little bit more time in the mornings on the weekends with them.
Yeah. Now, is this your first time taking it?
First time taking it.
Oh, good. So did they give you a score, or did they let you know?
They don't do scores. They basically have 3 categories, whether it's not fail. I can't remember the term. There's above average, there's average, which is passing, and then I don't remember what the 3rd category they call, which is basically you don't pass. And luckily enough, I got above average, even though I didn't feel like that during my test. But so.
How many hours did they give you to take it?
So it's a 4-hour test. It's 180 questions. They give you 2 10-minute breaks after each section. So basically 60 question sections. Once you complete a section and you want to do your break, your 10 minutes, you can't go back to those 60 questions. So you basically have to make sure you're good with those 60 questions before you take your break. And then you do the next 60, take a break, the next one, and So
now, is it all online, or do you go to a place to take it?
They have both options. You can do it at home or in an office online. You have to have a camera on and stuff. I took it at a testing site, and I was joking with my wife. It seemed like a prison almost. So you walk into the facility. They ask you to turn your phone off, and before you can check in, you have to show them that your phone is off. They check you in. They ask you your name, what test you're taking, because there was people taking civil engineering tests, all different kinds of stuff. And then so you're waiting for them to officially check you in. So you go and they ask you to spell your name. They ask to see your ID. You have to take a picture. And then you go in. Once they call your name, you go into the testing site. You have to empty out your pockets, make sure you have nothing in your pockets. They made me lift up my sleeves of my shirt to make sure I didn't have anything hidden.
No sharp objects.
Yeah. And then when you want to take a break, you have to give them your ID. You can't leave the facility. So they have where you check in. You can go get a drink of water, use the restroom. If you brought a snack, you can have a snack. And then you go through the process again of going in, having to show your sleeves. You have nothing there. And before you can go back into the computer lab room, it seemed it is what it is, but I was joking. It seemed like I was in a prison for a little bit.
Yeah, I used to feel like maybe this is just the ADHD kid in me, but I always felt like a school was kind of prison for me. I hated being in a desk, like trying to keep me still in the desk. I feel sorry for my teachers.
Yeah, for sure.
I probably gave them hell.
It's grueling. It took me just under 3 hours to do the entire test, and to sit at a desk, and the chairs were super uncomfortable. It's pretty grueling, mentally taxing for sure.
Yeah, that is. I wonder. It seems like this world of AI and access to not just information, but even having essentially what's a software go into the world of information and extract the answers to the questions you throw at it. It seems like this new AI, what do they call those? They're like little AI people. They're like,
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the term for it, but
yeah, agents. They call them agents, AI agents. So soon there'll be AI agents that you can literally, and I think they're out right now, where you can just have it running in the background and just say, watch what I'm doing, and then tomorrow I want you to do it, and it'll just kind of figure out what you're trying to accomplish. It's almost like having a little Jarvis, like an Iron Man behind you.
I don't know if I'm on board with that, but it's coming for sure.
Yeah, I've started to use some of this stuff, and I think, what did I do? I was typing out some type of contract, and I said, can you just write me a contract and watch these videos that I've watched and do this other stuff? And then it just started spitting out a contract, and then I just kind of put the lipstick on it pretty much at the end.
Yeah, I use that for if we're trying to come up with a new policy or trying to update some stuff. I'll use ChatGPT, the regular that everybody kind of uses, to throw in there and then kind of review, and that way you're not having to invent the whole thing.
I've been using Grok lately. It's just gotten so much better, from Grok 3 to Grok 4 now, and then I think they have Grok 4 Heavy. Supposedly it's the most advanced. And but all right, so how do you feel like this has helped you as far as in Parks and Rec managing stuff? Because I imagine a project's a project. You still got to get you've got the planning stage of pretty much any project that's similar.
Yeah, I think for the most part it really just gives best practices, from whether it's a policy standpoint, from a looking at it from a, like, here's what you should do at the very beginning of a project. Here's some steps and guidelines of things to kind of think about, whether it's stakeholders. Stakeholders are a big thing that they talk about. So who are all the stakeholders within a project? So if it's a park and rec project, you're obviously gonna have your city council, you're gonna have your parks board. The community is number one, and so meeting with all different stakeholders to come up with a plan of what a successful project looks like. Because as park and recreation professionals, we feel like we have all the answers, but we don't see everything from every angle.
Right.
And so stakeholders are very key. And then creating a plan for keeping those stakeholders engaged throughout the entire process. So where you're not having to do a bunch of change orders of different things. You kind of are able to engage them through the process and, hey, we're at this point and here's where we're at. Is there anything that we're not thinking about, and stuff like that. And just really having thoughts to paper. I think before going through this process, like things were in my mind of how to do certain steps. But then say for whatever reason, I'm gone for 2 weeks within this project, or another job happens, or whatever. Is the project stuck because everything is in my mind, compared to now being on paper, to where you can have another quote unquote project manager step in the role, review all the documentation, and be able to just transition and move forward with it. I think that's a big takeaway from that as well. So yeah, really just those two things are really big for me. That it came through the process. I think every project's going to have its challenges and navigations, and you're always going to have something that pops up that you didn't think of, and that's just part of project management. But I think for the most part, we should be more successful because we have a more thorough, thought out plan at the beginning stage.
Right. And I think it's like anything, like thinking back to the days when I used to help build houses. It's, you know, that first house you build, you just learn so much. You make every mistake possible. But by the time you get to your 10th house, you've just got a rhythm. You've got a plan, you know, to bring the electrician and the plumber in to give their feedback. And if you don't, then they're going to, when they do get on the job, they're going to like, well, why didn't you do this? And so that's where stakeholders, you know, like utilities might come in and say, why did you put that there? We've got utilities running underneath it, and now we can't get, you know, there's always a reason to have these experts weigh in on your project, or otherwise, like you said, you'll end up with a change order because you kind of built it in the wrong way.
Yeah, that's another thing about this class of going through, is they call it lessons learned. So at the end of the project, when you're closing all the documentation, you're making sure everything's paid that needs to be paid, you're closing out contracts. You always do a meeting with the project management team, those that were in the field working, the project manager itself, any key stakeholders, whether that's a city management perspective, director perspective, whoever. You do a lessons learned brainstorming meeting, and you kind of go, okay, hey, what went really well within this project that, hey, if we have a similar project moving forward, we want to keep, or hey, what were some roadblocks or some challenges that we had that we would do things differently. And so we document all those, and you put that in a file. So if we have another project that's similar, you can always go back to that, review it, and then you can change your approach or whatever from the challenges you had on the previous one to make it better for the next one. So we always kind of do those, but we never really file them away to where we can always reference them back. It's almost like doing it just to do it, but actually documenting that to where you can pull from that, because your memory's only so good, and remembering what you talked about during those meetings. So actually filing that away and being able to review for the next similar project helps.
Yeah. Having that documentation is worth its weight in gold. I remember in a former life when I was a master electrician, troubleshooting problems that were, you know, sometimes you'll have a problem and it'll resurface in 10 years from now. And then someone like me is coming to try to find and troubleshoot the problem. And the first thing I ask for, do you have your as-builts? And they're like, oh, there's this room. And then we go find this architectural drawing. And this is what the people who built the job marked it with highlighters and pencils. And they say, well, we had to run it this way. And then you kind of dig into it, like, there's the problem. But without that as-built documentation, you're just kind of lost feeling your way through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll use like our irrigation team, for example. They struggle with that a lot. We have a lot of older systems that we don't have documentation of as-builts of how it was built, and even irrigation plans in general. And it's a, for lack of better words, a crapshoot trying to figure out where things are. And it takes more time to troubleshoot and figure out those things to make the system operate how it should, because we don't have those as-built. So that's a challenge we're facing right now with a lot of our older systems.
Yeah, because usually you can go back to those engineering firms that, you know, drew up the facility to begin with, but they just showed you what they told you to build. They don't have what was actually built. And so you're trying to find those drawings. It's completely different. Because that's got all your change orders in it. And any given project, I mean, it's common to have many change orders halfway through a project. Some stakeholder comes in and said, well, we've got funding to add this. And so that wasn't on the original drawing, and you got to
Yeah.
find a way to incorporate that in there, which is
Yeah, and
more money.
you're going to have those landscape architects or those designers that build something on a computer that not necessarily on site, and there's going to
Yeah.
be roadblocks that, hey, this, we can't put this zone in here because there's a big oak tree or whatever, and so you have to make modifications and designs, and so those as-builts are crucial for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I can tell you, as a former contractor, we would always, I mean, it was just every day we were like, who designed this? This is, you can't even do this. We have to do it this way. And so we're constantly changing it because of code, because of something else, because something's in the way. And so we have to build it different than it was designed, because you couldn't build it the way that they kind of designed it.
Yeah, that's always a challenge, I think, with any architectural drawings in general.
Yeah, and I think the architects and engineers aren't bringing in all your stakeholders. So when they give you the design, they don't have the council, the community, the maintenance crews weighing in on this project. They just say, here's what you can build.
Yeah.
But then you go get all the stakeholders, and now they're saying they're making all the tweaks and adjustments that are necessary.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and run through it, because I did write some of this down. So see if you picked up anything or learned anything. So initiating the project. Why are we doing this project? Anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think that goes back to, so we do a 5-year and a 10-year CIP plan. I think we're going to look at potentially modifying it a little bit. So we basically, for the next 5 or 10 years, and we're getting pretty close to adopting our master plan, so that will probably make some adjustments within that CIP. But internally, we discuss like, hey, what projects, and based on funding as well, of the next 5 years do we plan on doing, in the next 10 years do we plan on doing? And it could be from a multiple things, whether it's infrastructure that's outdated, that's starting to deteriorate, that we need to modify. We have playgrounds that are out of date, that are hard to get parts, or they keep breaking, or anything like that. And so we do it a lot right now based on age. But something that we want to look at moving forward is, when we go to a park, a lot of times we're just looking at, okay, hey, this playground needs to be replaced. Instead of looking at the whole park in totality of, okay, yes, this playground needs to be replaced, but hey, this restroom also needs to. Do we want to add more trees? Do we need to add irrigation if there's not irrigation on the side? And just kind of going from a big picture standpoint. Now that's obviously going to bring more dollars to that project. And so are we going to have to do less projects with the money we have, but do the project in its totality, or are we fine with just doing a piece at a time and doing more projects throughout? So that's something with the initiating project portion that we're kind of really looking at, is whether it's just a quick little refurbishment from a playground renovation change, or do we want to look at from a big picture? Because the last couple playgrounds that we've done, we've added small little projects to it, because we get into it and we're like, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. And so those are change orders. That's money that wasn't accounted for, so you got to find it. And so if we do that in the front end, it just makes it smoother.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, so our next one, like you said, identifying stakeholders for Parks and Rec. Who are the natural stakeholders?
Community is always going to be number one. That's what these projects are for. They're for the community. So do we need to add a trail because there's a lot of trail users in there? Or do we need to add a parking lot because this is going to be a more high traffic park? Is there space for a parking lot? Do we want to have some type of natural features or wildflower areas to where we could do some programming and educational component to it? So getting the stakeholders and from the community and based on their feedback is super crucial. City management.
Is that the project managers doing that, or do you have some other person in your Parks and Rec department that's in charge of, getting this kind of?
So I think it's probably a team effort. I think mostly it's going to be on the project manager's perspective, but depending on who's leading the project. So if it's me, then I would get with our director and our deputy director of our parks, and we would have just a brainstorming meeting of, hey, who's all the stakeholders? Let's list them out. So is it city council? Yes, we're going to have city council's buy-in because they're going to approve the funding for this project. Same with Parks Board. They're not going to approve the funding for it, but they're going to recommend it to go to city council. So we got to have them on board. The community, is there different outside organizations that might utilize the park that we might not think of? So we're really big on inclusivity. And there's a couple organizations within the city of Burleson that run programming specific to those with special needs. And so getting their feedback on a playground design, whether it's a playground or park design that makes it all inclusive, we want to get that feedback from them. Working with our local school district and their special needs programs on what they need. And so we're really big on that. So that brainstorming session will kind of list that out. A lot of the community feedback we get is from online surveys, social media posts, those kind of things to get that. For larger projects like a community park that we're working through and waiting on construction documentations before we put that out to bid, we had a consultant do the community engagement. And so there was some pop-up workshops, whether it was at a special event that we hosted that they just had a booth and they got face-to-face interaction. We do that sometimes too, to get feedback, trying to hit all different points, because not everybody has social media. Not everybody enjoys online stuff. We still have a demographic that wasn't grown up on technology, so I think their input is still important, because we want to design parks for everybody. We don't want to design it just for 5-year-olds or just for young adults or whoever. We want it to be enjoyable by everybody. So you got to try to figure out different ways to get feedback from different demographics and age groups.
Yeah, because there really are, especially the people that are naturally left out. Think about the, single mom that doesn't have more transportation for her child. She's just living paycheck to paycheck, but this park is really important to her. Chances of getting her to show up at some council meeting are pretty much zero, but she might be one of your biggest users of the park.
Yeah, and I'll use, so Centennial Park is one of our parks that we just renovated that I was a project manager, and we had to do some minor repairs to the port in place surfacing. And so the company came out there and we closed it down for a couple days, and we opened it back up and we posted on social media, hey, park's back open. And when the park was, before we did the renovation, there was a circle walking path that went around the entire park. Well, with the new design, it was a smaller footprint, and so it didn't make sense to have a concrete sidewalk go all the way around. We had to demo a lot of that. Well, we've had a lot of feedback. I say a lot. There's been a few comments on the social media post of reopening that they wish they had that concrete sidewalk back, because when the kids were playing, the moms that either they had a dog at the park or they had strollers with a younger kid that couldn't play, they liked to walk around that walking track to path, and wish maybe we didn't ask the right questions to get that type of feedback, or maybe people didn't really think about that being demoed. And so now it's going back on like, hey, is this something we want to look at adding? Because we've had a couple people doing that, but then we got to have money for it. And so those kind of things are we asking the right questions to get the feedback we need? I don't think you're ever going to hit the nail on 100% of the people. You're not going to always give them everything that they need, but that's a potential win that we could have possibly had if we had that feedback prior to. So.
All right. So then now you've initiated the project, got your stakeholders pretty much as best as you can, and now you're starting to plan the project, scope of the project. What does that stage look like?
Yeah. So the scope of the project really is defining the work. So you've got all this community engagement feedback. You've got a list of, hey, these are must-haves, these are nice-to-haves, these are basically anything and everything you got from that engagement portion with your stakeholders. With the scope of work, you identify the funding. So, hey, for this project, now it's a little bit different from a municipality standpoint because we already have identified an amount that we have for this project specifically.
Yeah.
So say it's 500,000. So within this community engagement portion, what can we do realistically with this 500,000? Do we want, hey, 250,000 of this is going to go to the playground, 100,000 is going to go to different infrastructure, 50,000 is going to go to this, and you kind of break that down and you kind of really create a plan for the scope of the project of how the work's going to be done. At that point, you're also kind of thinking about a team. So what firms are we going to use from a construction standpoint? What are we able to do internally from our staff? You're kind of starting the conversations of what each part of the project is going to be done by an outside construction company or different organization, or what's internally. You kind of start that process and looking at what can be done in all aspects within that scope.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a little break since we're at the halfway point. Daniel, let me know what you think of this new facilities. This is our 2.0 version. So
All
we
right.
finally updated it. So this is specifically for this show.
Sweet.
A little promo we made. Here we go.
Behind every thriving park, every safe playground, every event-ready field, there's a team working before sunrise and long after sunset. This is facility maintenance, the only show created for and by the unsung heroes of parks and recreation. Brought to you by DPRS Media Co., where real work gets real recognition. From restrooms to rec centers, HVAC to turf tech, we go beyond the job site into the heart of operations that keep our communities moving. Our mission? To elevate maintenance teams through stories, solutions, and shared experience. Our vision? A world where every facility crew is seen, valued, and fully supported. Each episode features operators, innovators, and leaders, sharing tools, tech, and tactics that make the impossible look easy. Facility maintenance isn't just a job, it's purpose, it's passion, and now it's a show. Facility maintenance, where tools meet purpose, where work becomes legacy.
There you go.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I think it brings to light. I mean, the people out in the field, they're the unsung heroes of the operation and how things work. And I think a lot of individuals in the community, and I think this is probably community wide, take it for granted for just going to a park, being able to enjoy it, and not fully understand the behind the scenes of how everything works to get it the way it is. So I appreciate that little video for just the audience of whoever's watching to kind of get a idea of, hey, yeah, it is very purposeful what those individuals do out in the field.
Yeah, it seems like you only notice when it's broken.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
when everything's working.
Yeah.
All right, so back to project management. So you got past the planning stage, now you're scheduling it. So how important is that schedule?
I mean, it's crucial, especially if you're working with third-party vendors. I think, and say you're working with multiple third-party vendors, depending on the scope of the work. Is one, can two vendors work at the same time together and overlap, or does one vendor's portion of the work have to be completed before the next vendor can take the next step? And so schedule is very important. I think it's always going to vary based on the project. You try to be as close to what you think is realistic on that. You have to kind of go back to the subject matter experts when creating the schedule. Because I'm not an expert by no means on the construction side and how long certain things take. So how long is it going to take us to demo this playground? How long is it going to take us to grade it and re-level it for the next one? How long is it going to take to rip out this sidewalk and re-pour and re-navigate it? And so you really have to, the people that you've identified for your team and the people that are working out in the field, you have to have a meeting with them to build out your schedule. Because I can easily, it kind of goes back to the landscape architect and their design. They got the paper and hey, this looks good. But you need those subject matter experts that are actually doing the work to give you a realistic timeline.
Right.
Because I could say, hey, this project's going to take 2 months, and is that feasible and realistic? It may or may not be.
Yeah.
And so you really have to have those subject matter experts give you that
Oh, yeah.
feedback, help you build that schedule. And then you always have to update the schedule. So if say this is a 3-month project, but we've had 2 weeks of rain, and so we weren't able to work during those 2 weeks, and then now we need another week for it to dry out. Hey, that pushes your timeline back those 3 weeks, and you have to adjust based on that. So it's constant. You try to get as close as you can, but you have delays. You have what in the project management course they call risks. You try to identify those early in the project, to say, hey, weather during the spring in Texas is a high risk and a high probability. So you might need to adjust your schedule and throw in some of those those rainy days. Is there a risk of procurement being delayed for whatever reason? So if you have a third-party vendor that's going to do some of the work and the procurement process for the contract or whatever is delayed by a day or two, that delays them 1 or 2 days. So you try to put all those risks together, to identify what may slow down the process, and just try to build that within your schedule also.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a great example that we always ran into, obviously you don't want to pour the concrete before you get your pipe in the ground. And so, if you have rain and so they can't get the trencher out there, and so the plumbers and electrician can't get their pipe in the ground, but now the next week the cement contractors come in, pave everything. You got to wait. We have to wait. All the stuff gets in the ground. We got to push everything back, reschedule everything. And then, as the electrical contractor on a lot of the jobs, this is back when I owned my 20s, we were always a lot of the delay problems. We couldn't get the pipe in, the trencher broke or something.
And that's a risk. You could have equipment failure. That's a risk. You never know. Or do you need to rent a piece of equipment because you don't have it, and then the company you were going to rent it from, they already rented it out, so now you have to figure something else out. So you try to identify those pretty early on of what might happen, and kind of list them in category based on probability, and then if it's a high risk, so does it have potential to really slow down your schedule or increase your budget if this happens. And so you put basically a probability matrix together, of, hey, is this likely to happen, and then what's the impact if it does happen.
And I'd say the biggest, at least for us, constant communication was the best thing. Is just always be in contact, because just knowing that things are going to change. Can't control weather, you can't control equipment breaking, you can't control people getting sick or ending up in the hospital, or if you get an injury on a job, whatever. And so just be ready for the chaos, because it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in today's day with technology of being able to have Zoom or Teams, it makes it a lot easier. Just have a quick 10-minute briefing every morning on a project with all the vendors that are going on. Hey, what did we accomplish yesterday? What's our goal for today? Did we have any delays or hiccups or anything like that? So just quick little 10 minutes, 15, and then move on. So it's helpful to be able to do that, because some contractors might be in town. And so are you going to ask them to come drive into town for a 10-minute quick session? No. So having Teams and Zoom is definitely helpful in that aspect.
Oh yeah, that's huge. All right. So estimated costs, you have that on here. What, is this more around change orders, or if, something goes up, or what do we?
So that's really kind of real. So in the early process of the scope, and you're kind of creating your budget in the municipality world, we already have that full amount that we have allotted for this project. Now, are there some unallocated funds that if we go over in some capacity to be able to use, we can, but at that portion, you're really in the PMP process. There's multiple ways of figuring out estimated costs for things, but this is where you really try to really define what that cost estimation for each part of the project's going to be.
Mhm.
So really outlining it, basically creating your full budget. So yeah, you might early on in the process have $500,000 as your budget, but at that process, you're actually going category to category of every step of, okay, this playground's going to cost 200. We want to do $10,000 worth of trees. Well, for the trees, we're going to have to add irrigation, and that irrigation's 5,000. And so you're really using subject matter experts for that, or using knowledge from past projects that are similar
Yeah.
to kind of get an estimation of what those costs are. You typically will go a little bit on the higher end,
Mhm.
so where you're not undershooting it and being like, oh crap, I don't have enough money. You'd rather
Yeah.
have too much and be able to reel back and spend that elsewhere than not having enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't wanna have exactly the amount of money you need because stuff
Yeah,
changes. Prices are constantly typically trending up.
yeah, yeah. We typically try to do like 10% contingency is
Yeah.
usually what we do.
Oh, that's good. And then, okay, so quality standards for this project?
Yeah. So after we kind of define that budget line item by line item, then we really this comes back to really don't get the community really involved in this, but like our city council, parks board, our director, deputy director, project management, and even the team that's going to be doing the project, third party or in house, of really defining what quality means within this project.
Mhm.
That's a huge, wide range of. I mean, you name it, you can put it in there. So when we finish this project, we know what quality means for the quote unquote acceptance criteria for this project. So you're really
Mhm.
defining what that quality standard is during that process. It's another brainstorming process, but it makes everybody on the same page because my thought of quality might be different than our city management's quality standards, and just getting everybody on the same page to where when we're at the end getting ready to do a ribbon cutting, everybody understands like, hey, our quality has been standard has been met for this project and we're good to go. And then it also puts the third party vendors that you're working with, I should say, now they know what the standard is. And then if you come back to them like, hey, this doesn't meet the standard of quality that we identified early in the process,
Mhm.
it's it's an easier conversation piece of having to, whether it's redoing something or whatever the case may be, or just a little minor change that needs to happen to meet that quality. It's easier conversation if you have that defined early, because if you don't have it defined and you just are there ready to accept it and then you're like, nope, hey, we don't like that because of this, you're like, well, we didn't, this is what we talked about early on, and this was a standard that we discussed. So it kind of takes away from the potential he said, she said, this is how I want it compared to this is how this person wants it. Just gets everybody on the same page.
Yeah. And it's so hard to be able to work this out this far into the project. It would be great to have all your quality standards set before you even started initiating the project, but it seems like it's further into the process before you even get to that.
Yeah, I think you can have some preliminary conversations. The initiating part of the process is really just knowing that, hey, this project is coming.
Yeah.
This is a project that we've identified that we want to do. That's really the basics of that,
Mhm.
coming up with the scope. And then you get into the nitty gritty as you're going through it.
Mm. Alright, so then we are like, what resources do we need to have for this project? So aside from just the money, what are the other resource categories that you're looking at?
So we kind of talked about that. So any materials, do you need to have different topsoil to bring in? Do you need concrete? Do you need trees? Do you need landscape plants? Do you need mulch? Do you equipment? What equipment might you might need? What third party contractors do you definitely need that you can't do? So you're really just kind of outlining all the resources you need, from whether it's material, equipment. It might be, hey, you need more staff resources. You need a you need 1 or 2 people to work on this project. That, hey, we need to take 2 people off of a mowing crew to be able to do this project because we're doing it in mowing season. So it could be staff as well, could be personnel.
Yeah.
So you're looking at all those things.
Yeah, we always had, so a lot of our clients had some of the equipment. And so they just needed to know, have this piece of equipment at this date on this job.
Yep.
For 2 weeks, and then they had to just be without that equipment. But a lot of times it just saved the cities a lot of money for not having to rent, their contractors not having to rent. They've already owned this piece of equipment. They just got to have it on the site.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Centennial Park, for example, like we extended some of our irrigation because we took out that sidewalk I was talking about a little bit earlier, and we needed to extend our irrigation. Well, we don't have the equipment as far as a trencher and stuff like that, and we could always rent one, but we wanted a irrigation contractor to come in and do stuff, and we provided some valves and some different irrigation supplies because it ended up being cheaper. We just had them do the installation for it. So yeah, perfect example.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's actually one of the other companies I had built. We would just provide the material. And a lot of the Parks and Rec departments had electricians on staff. They just needed the material.
Yeah.
And so that way it was kind of a combination of using your third party and your staff to kind of get the job done. All right. So plan for risk. I know we've mentioned a lot about that, but you've got weather, equipment, insurance, bonds, delays, planning for these risks.
Yeah, I think risks is always, in my opinion, going through that. I don't think we've ever, I think that's a new process we're going to try to implement. I think it's going to be a project by project scenario, time of year, all of that. And I think that's an ongoing process through the entirety of the project, because you try to brainstorm and get as much of those possible risks as possible. But there's always going to be some things that come up last minute that you don't notice. A risk could also be a stakeholder. So a stakeholder that has a high amount of influence within the city can have potential for delaying the project because something's not going right or something like that. So it's not necessarily just weather related. It could be people related. It could be permits. It could be, I mean, who knows? And so you try to identify all those early. But it's something you basically every day you're kind of reevaluating what risks may pop up. Throughout.
Now, I know we've talked about communication throughout the project, but you have on here progress reports. So let's talk about, let's say you made your schedule, but is it going according to schedule? And
right.
How do we make those adjustments?
Yeah. So communication, I think in general, so you come up with a communication plan, and that could be a variety of things. So you have your stakeholder engagement plan, which basically all your stakeholders. So whether it's the community, we've talked about them all. I don't want to keep going through that because it's a long list. But you come up with a game plan for each stakeholder of what you're going to communicate. So does the community want a bi-weekly social media posts on the progress of the park? So whether that's photos and like, hey, here's where we're at. Does our city management, do they just want a monthly email saying, hey, this is where we're at? Does our director want, hey, every 2 weeks I want to know where we're at on budget, where we're at on the schedule, where we're at on, you name it, whatever that person, an individual wants, you kind of create a plan for them. Does our project team, the ones that are actually doing the work, we come up with a game plan, whether it's, hey, we have a SharePoint file that has the schedule that's going to be updated every day, so everybody has access to it. We'll review that first thing in the morning, see where we're at. So you kind of adjust it based on the needs of the team, the needs of the stakeholders, and what they want from an engagement standpoint. Our city manager might want to be notified just at the end of the project when we're done, and our assistant city manager, he might want every other week, I want something. It kind of just depends. You kind of just get all that feedback early on in the process. You create an Excel spreadsheet. You put some calendar invites. Hey, reminder, send this communication plan of where we're at and with the things that they need on this day to this individual. And that's all on the project manager to navigate that.
Yeah. And sad to say, but we haven't even gotten to the execute the plan yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've just now arrived to execute the plan after
So
all
executing the plan. Yeah. You're finally at the stage where you're actually doing the work. That's you've got all your plans, your processes, communication, your tentative schedule, because that's always going to be changing based on the risks that are identified and actually happen. You're able to actually execute the plan. You have your team developed and built. You know what third-party vendors you're going to be working with. You're hopefully good to go on a procurement process, and all of those have already been defined and gone through. So you're able to just, hey, we're day one of the project. We're moving forward.
Yeah. You know, and I remember when I used to be in charge of projects like this, by the time it got to the execution stage, I was almost ready to be done with the job because I had built this job 15 times in my head before anyone showed up, before we even broke ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I felt like I'd lived it 10
And
times.
it seems like a very extensive process in the very beginning. And I think going through this PMP certification, it kind of brought to light some things that we were doing, but some things that are like, hey, we didn't really think about this. And so then it leads to hiccups during the execution process. And so in theory, if you do all this work up front, it might take 2-3 months to put this all together, but then you're able to just kind of hit the ground running. And then you're just, you have a plan for, hey, if this risk comes up, hey, we have a plan, an action plan of what we're going to do to remedy that to make it have less of a problem within the project and be able to move forward quickly. And so proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah,
that's what I like to kind of lean on, not only from project management, but just in day-to-day life. And I officiate basketball. I don't know if I've said this, but I officiate basketball on the side on the college level, and those are things that we talk about all the time. During the off season, are we reading our rule book? Are we practicing? Are we working out to stay in shape? Are you doing the things to where, hey, I've done all this and my performance is going to be good when I'm out on the floor? So it's no difference in this.
Yeah.
You're just preparing for anything and everything that can happen. So the process when you're actually executing it is goes smoothly, as smooth as possible.
Yeah, and it reminds me of two quotes that we always used to say. This was an old Navy SEAL quote. They were said, no plan survives the first round of fire. All your plans, and then all of a sudden bullets start flying and all the plans go out the window.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're always going to have that for sure. You're going to have the greatest plan ever. We can go through this 3-month process, and day 5 of the project, something unknown that we didn't think about comes up, and you're like, all right, so let's come up with a game plan. We didn't think about that. What's the plan?
Yeah, you end up finding out you're on top of a burial ground or some dinosaur bone.
Hopefully not that scenario, but
right. The other one that we always said is that old Mike Tyson quote that everybody's got a plan, you get punched in the face.
Yeah. I think if you go into it with that thought process, it makes those hiccups or those unwarranted or unknown things that come up. I think that it kind of gives you an opportunity to step back, like, hey, we know these things are going to happen. So it's not as much of a surprise. You don't get super stressed out about it. You kind of take a step back and like, hey, these things are going to happen. Let's just do what we can to move forward and figure out a solution.
Yeah, and I think it was always important for us to explain the nature of this to everyone that we were working with, that you never set sail thinking you're always going to have a tailwind. There's no storms in the ocean, but it's full of storms. It's full of, adversities, and we're just going to work through it all. And your team kind of gets good at just adapting to whatever the reality is, the circumstances that you're facing. Yeah,
adaptability in project management is super crucial. It's super important for the project manager to know that, and then just to reiterate that to your team that hey, we're going to have to adapt at some point. We have this plan put together, but at some point there's going to be something we have to adapt. And how quickly can we adapt to that to be able to keep the progress of the project moving forward.
Yeah. And then this last phase, unfortunately, is often just overlooked and not done. But we're closing the project. Of course, we're paying everybody, so that part's usually done.
Yeah.
But then this quality inspection, celebrate, reflecting on it. Let's dig into that part of it a little bit.
Yeah, I talked a little bit earlier about the lessons learned. That's a big component. Like I said, we've done that in the past. We've talked about that, but then we kind of talk about it. We don't put it on paper, and then the next time we have this type of project, we just have to hope we remember it. I think you got to do inspections, so you build that quality standards in early on, and so then when the project is quote unquote finished, then whether it's a checklist of, hey, this is one of our quality standards, this is whatever the case may be, and so you're going to each amenity, each part of the project, and checking those off, and then creating a punch list item of things that don't meet that standard, getting with whatever vendor, whether it was us internally that we didn't meet the standard or a third party, and giving them a punch list item of, hey, these are the things that we need to adjust or fix or replace or whatever, to make sure that standard is met. And then once we sign off, punch list items are completed, we sign off. That's when we can do those final payments. We can make sure that there's an acceptance letter to each individual that worked on the project. And then it comes usually a little bit before that. We kind of have an idea, we're pretty close, and so we want to do a ribbon cutting of some sort to celebrate this project, to have the community come. We usually get our recreation team involved with that, because they do our special events. They're the go-tos for whether, hey, do we want to have a snow cone truck? Do we want to have a caricature artist? What do we want to have within this celebration to do the ribbon cutting? We got to make sure that the mayor is involved, their city council is involved, so if they want to speak, they can speak, and we have a podium. Do you want to have a DJ for music and all of that? So you kind of create a separate project plan just for the celebration and ribbon cutting of that. And you also got to think of hey, what happens after we cut ribbon? We got to operate and maintain it. So what's the game plan there? Did we add a restroom? So now, hey, we need to add this restroom to our normal service level agreement for every day we hit this restroom to clean. Is there more green space to this than there was before? So now we got to make sure that our mowing team that mows this park knows, hey, this area needs to be mowed. Our quality control team, from an inspection standpoint, hey, we have a new fence that outlines the project or the playground itself. So we need to make sure that's on your inspection list to check the fencing. You got to make sure that the team that's going to be operating and maintaining this knows all, and hopefully early on the process they kind of know and have some buy-in and kind of understand through this. But now, hey, it's real. Now this is on our plate to maintain it. So do we have a game plan to implement this within our normal routine? And then lessons learned, like I mentioned, you kind of do that. You make sure everything's filed away in a separate folder. I'm kind of currently working on a standard of how we save things, like having separate folder for any of the any plan sets. Here's all our plans. Here's community feedback. Here's basically lining that out and having a standard, so every folder for every project is lined out the same. So no matter who goes in there, if they have the template of where things should be saved, they can go in there and find what they need. Whether it's irrigation tech wants to know where the irrigation plans for this new addition to this park is, they can just go to that folder, find it easy, pull it up. Hey, they have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and having all this information is so valuable to managing, everything down the road, and having it available, especially digitally, if you can. Because some of this stuff, unfortunately, in the past was all paper,
100%.
and so, and then we used to not let people take the paper out of the room. We were like, nope, you can't have this. You can look at it, but you're not leaving this building with it because you'll never come back.
we have paper irrigation plans scattered throughout different facilities. We try to put them in one. We got those plans that are huge, and then you got the paper versions that's hard to even read.
Yeah.
It's just an 8.5 by 11 normal.
Yeah.
And so on digital, at least you can blow it up in different sections and all of that.
Yeah. Now, any closing remarks for because a lot of Parks and Rec departments don't have someone like you on staff that has any type of training or expertise around project management. It's like the director, the grass cutter, and some programs person, and that's the whole team. And so it ends up falling in the hands of like the director of Parks and Rec to manage some of these projects. Any advice you give somebody that's, this is their situation?
Yeah, I think, in reality, I think that's kind of where we're at. I think everybody on our team, we were fortunate enough that David Lopez, who's now the director of City of Kyle, he had a lot of project management experience before he went there. And several people on our team wanted experience of doing that. And so we were able to use him as a crutch, if you want to say, to ask questions, get feedback, but we're kind of just thrown in the fire of how to do this. And then I came across this certification, and I like structure and organization. That's kind of how my mind works. And so I was fortunate enough that Jen and Jessica, our director and deputy director, allowed me to go through this process to kind of help us out in general. So there's going to be some things that I can bring to the team to kind of help us with that structure to get this all together. I think for the most part, if you don't have a parks planner or an architect on staff or anything like that, we were talking about AI earlier. I think you can use AI to basically say, hey, can you create me a project management template plan based on PMP standards? And it's not going to go full blown. It'll kind of just give you that template, and then you can kind of create it and use it on your own. Some things are going to be, hey, this won't work for us. I think that, and there's some things going through that's not going to work for our organization. And so that kind of gives you that stepping stone of kind of there. So I would suggest doing that, so you're not having to create it by scratch. You can kind of start with using our technology tools with AI, and being able to do that. It's always a work in progress as well. You're going to get thrown into it. You're going to have those lessons learned at the end. Use your resources, whether it's, everybody's got networking. Every director, manager, people on the field, they know somebody that works in the field somewhere else that have had similar issues or anything like that. I think that's always key, to use your resources, use your colleagues to manage through it, because most problems they're not new problems. Somebody has made that mistake or has ran into that problem that can help you guide you through that issue or finding a solution to it.
Yeah, I would say watch this video, use AI, tap your resources in other cities that, they're more than happy to hop on the phone, but there is no replacement from just managing a project. That really
Absolutely.
is the best education.
Yeah. I could have went through this certification process in college before I've done any of it, be thrown into a project and still be treading water, trying to figure it out. There's no substitute for actually doing it.
Yeah, real world experience is the real classroom.
Absolutely.
Well, man, thank you so much for coming on the show again today. I appreciate you coming back and telling us all about your project management experiences and that big test you took. So now, did you get like some certification award stamp?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but on the very top, I was able. It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah,
added to my collection. I'm really big on continuing education and trying to find something that's going to help me out through the process. So I was able to. I didn't get it formally sent to me, but it was a digital copy. I just printed it out and put it on the wall behind me.
Fantastic. Is that a block of cheese on your bookshelf behind you?
Oh yeah, I'm a cheesehead.
There we go.
I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. We'll bring this in. So
that's the real.
I get to give all my friends that are Cowboys fans, and all my team mostly are all Cowboys fans. I get to give them a bunch of grief on the Packers Cowboys little rivalry and stuff. So
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show. We'll have to do this again as we continue to build out this facilities maintenance show. There's really so much expertise to share on this side of the Parks and Rec departments. And I'm really glad to kind of help create content for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. Take care. Have a good day, Dan.
See you, Craig.
All right. All right. So thank you, Daniel, for coming on again. Yeah, there's really so much to be said about project management. It really is a skill in and of itself. And then on top of that skill, it's completely different to manage a project through city government with all these different stakeholders, elected officials, plus all the craftsmen. And like Daniel alluded to, use your resources, call people like Daniel that you can meet at a Parks and Rec convention, your state convention, your national convention, that can kind of give you a little guidance. Use AI. But really nothing's going to prepare you better than just managing a project. That first one you manage is just going to be tough. And so recommend just rolling up your sleeves and learn all those lessons. And don't forget that last step. What do we learn? What do we do right? What could we have done better? And by the time you get to your 6th, 7th, 8th, playground, green space built, you'll become a master at it that way. So thanks a lot, Daniel, for coming on. And thank you all for listening today. We do have another show coming up with leaders in Parks and Rec in about 20 minutes. So we'll see y'all here shortly. Hold on. Let me go ahead and put the outro. Let's see. What am I going to do today? I'm going to do our youth sports mastery as our outro video. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. See y'all here.
At DPRS Media Co., we don't just create content. We elevate community through storytelling. Now, we're proud to introduce the newest addition to the family. Welcome to Youth Sports Mastery, the podcast where champions are shaped, not just on the field, but in life. Hosted by National Academy of Athletics founder Aaron Locks. Youth Sports Mastery dives deep into how youth sports can empower kids, strengthen communities, and build leaders. From coaching culture to recreation strategy, and from player development to parent impact, every episode brings game-ready insight from the people making it happen. Youth Sports Mastery goes live every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Only on the Daily Parks and Rec Show, sponsored by National Academy of Athletics. And powered by DPRS Media Co. This is where purpose meets play.